This lesson covers the two primary tools you're going to use to manage and edit group policy. The Group Policy Management Console is the primary interface you'll use to manage group policy. Firing up the console will show you the Active Directory forest and all the contained domains. So in my example, I just have a single domain. It also shows me the sites available. I can perform modeling options to actually show, for example, if a user was in this domain and this organizational unit and a member of these groups, what would their group policy look like? I can also see what the actual current group policy results of a user may be. Expanding out a domain shows me all the organizational units in that domain. It shows me objects that exist in this group policy objects folder. So these are all of the group policy objects stored in this specific domain, which are then linked in various locations. For example, all of these group policy objects you see here are linked at the domain level. Domain controllers has its own linked. And you can browse through and see any other places where there may be group policy objects linked. The tool also allows WMI filters to be created. For example, normally I'll be linking a group policy object to a domain or an organizational unit and perhaps a site. But sometimes I may need to be more specific. Maybe I've not created enough organizational units to really be as fine-tuned as I need for my application of group policy. So I may instead create a WMI filter to say, well, actually only apply this group policy object to machines that meet this specific criteria. Within the console, if I select, for example, my domain, I can see all of the linked group policy objects. I can see, is it enforced, i.e. no override. So this means the settings that are configured in this policy can't be overridden by another policy. Is this link actually enabled so it's going to get applied? The status of the group policy object. The group policy object contains two parts, a user portion and a computer portion. Enabled means both the computer and user portion are enabled. But you can see here for this one particular object, the computer configuration settings part is disabled. It would only apply the user parts. I can see if a WMI filter is in use, when it was last modified, and the domain that's actually storing that group policy object. I can see any inheritance that may occur. For example, this doesn't include any ones that may have been linked to sites. And I can see delegation, i.e. people who have management. And I can see the various permissions that are applied, and I can change them through here. If I select a specific group policy object through this view, I can see some of its details, its scope, for example, of where it has been linked to. Is there any security filtering in place? Like the WMI filter, I can also block group policy objects by removing certain users from having permission or computers to actually use the group policy object, then it would not be applied to them. I can get a quick view of the settings defined in that group policy object. I can open this up, and for example, this shows me this group policy object runs a login script. And again, I can see the delegation who has management to this. I can also have the same view actually under group policy objects, but I also have this status tab that's doing a check for me on the replication state of this group policy object regarding Active Directory and sysvol, i.e. are they in sync? While the settings tab gives me an overview of the settings that are already configured, to actually look at all of the possible settings, I have to right click and say edit. This now opens up the Group Policy Management Editor, and now enables me to actually configure both the computer and the user sets of policies and preferences. And there's a huge scope that is available. Most of the settings are actually found under Administrative Templates, as we're actually going to discuss in the next lesson.